think we're recording. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is the Fifth Episcopal Revelation Fellowship. I'm Reverend Dr. Roger Paul. Here with my wife. I just lost my speaker.
I don't have your picture up with the screen.
It's not up now. It was up.
No, it keeps knocking it off. Excuse me, folks at home. If it goes out again, dear, just hit
Just
the
hit that.
turn on the video. There we go.
That's it.
Okay.
It's going around. It'll come. Maybe.
Alright.
Hey, sweetie.
Cats and
We have a lot of cat activity today. I actually just brought one of my kitty cats over, and everyone's celebrating tonight.
When the camera came up there, I was just looking at the cat's face. It was looking at me. Then it moved away.
Alright, paper 62, The Dawn Races of Early Man. And that is on... That's on, starts on page 703.1 or paper 6201. And let's say a little prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight, and thank you for this wonderful revelation that we can learn and experience the universe. Pray that you open our hearts and minds that we might learn something to share with others. And we thank you and we give you praise. Your will be done. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, I'll start reading. How's that? Paper 62, The Dawn Races of Early Man. About 1 million years ago, the immediate ancestors of mankind made their appearance by 3 successive and sudden mutations. There's that sudden again, huh? Stemming from early stock of the lemur type of placental mammal. The dominant factors of these early lemurs were derived from the Western or later American group of the evolving life plasm. You know, there was 3 places that happened, right? But before establishing the direct line of human ancestry, this strain was reinforced by contributions from the central life implantation evolved in Africa. The Eastern life group contributed little or nothing to the actual production of the human species. So it was this one group of the lemurs in Africa that the whole dawn of civilization came from. Oops, I messed up. Okay.
So what's that saying here?
What was that?
The Eastern life group contributed little or nothing to the actual production.
Yeah, remember there were 3 different areas that they implanted life. One of them was the Eastern, one of them was the Western, and the other was the Central, which would have been included in Africa, I believe. So
This strain was reinforced by contributions from the central life implantation.
yeah, in other words, from the central life plasm, basically the lemur sprung, okay? But probably the other implantations, you know, when they made the implantations in the oceans and the waters, those commingled throughout all the entire planet. You realize that, right? And that's what they're saying here is the Eastern implantation didn't donate much of anything to it. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
You went away again.
Oh, you did go.
Sky.
Yeah, this guy.
You started again? Didn't see Kenny. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. Rodney, you want to do the next one?
Me? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 1, the early lemur types. It is lemur, right? Yes.
Yeah.
The early lemurs concerned in the ancestry of human species were not directly related to the pre-existent tribes of gibbons and panthers and apes then living in Eurasia and Northern Africa. have survived the present time. Neither were they the offspring of the modern type of lemur, though springing from an ancestor common to both but long since extinct.
Okay, so we are not direct descendants of the pre-existing tribes of gibbons. What, you understand that? So we did not come from the same source as apes did, or monkeys, either one. Okay, what we came from was a early type of lemur that no longer exists. It's not the lemurs that you see now, right?
I don't see lemurs.
Well, you can look them up in an encyclopedia, and there's pictures of them. They look
Okay.
Look like prairie dogs a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit like.
I think they're mostly on the island of Madagascar, off the east coast of Africa.
Yeah, yeah. And those are descendants of this, right? But they're not descendants from the one that created the human group. All of those are extinct, okay? So the type of lemur that we sprang from is long, long since extinct. All right, probably wiped out by the gibbon tribes or the apes, okay? Early in the mix. And it's kind of a miracle that our direct ancestor, which we're going to read about tonight, survived. You know, because there was groups of apes and gorillas and baboons and things like that. They traveled in packs or groups, okay, and they would raid each other's camps for food. They'd eat each other, you know, basically. So, all right. Millie, would you take the next one, please?
Yes. While these early lemurs evolved in the Western Hemisphere, the establishment of the direct mammalian ancestry of mankind took place in southwestern Asia, in the original area of the Central Life Implantation, but on the borders of the eastern regions. Several million years ago, the North American type lemurs had migrated westward over the Bering Land Bridge and had slowly made their way southwestward along the Asiatic coast. These migrating tribes finally reached the salubrious region lying between the then expanded Mediterranean Sea and the elevating mountainous regions of the Indian Peninsula. In these lands to the west of India, they united with other and favorable strains, thus establishing the ancestry of the human race.
So it kind of gives you a picture of them going across the Asian land bridge, coming down from North America into Asia, and eventually getting down to the Mediterranean coast and into India. Okay, so they went.
This is all before the land broke apart.
This is all.
It's hard to think about going from North America to Asia.
That's right.
There's an ocean in between
But that's
there now.
But that's what they're talking about here. Is it was still connected by the Bering Land Bridge, okay, which is way up there high, right? So they went across and came back down. They went across and came back down from North America.
Yeah, because that would be Japan and China and Russia, Siberia.
Yeah, and that's what they did. Is they came through there, Asia, and ended up on the west coast, which would be
right here, the same 7 million years ago. So it took more than 1 million years for this to happen.
Oh yeah, they were on the move quite a long time. You know, it's not like they took a trip and did all this in one shot, right?
So if we had actually been created by, if we weren't an experimental planet, and we weren't, our essence, not essence, but our physical beings, bodies came from this earth. Okay, but if the life carriers had implanted plasma that they carried with them, then we would all be uniformly, we would just have evolved as human beings, period.
No, it would still have happened the same way. All planets are populated just like this one.
Really?
The only difference is that being an experimental planet is they're allowed to tweak the DNA a little bit, trying to make, that's why they call it an experimental, trying to improve our strain of humanness. And so, but all other planets basically evolved the same way we did.
And then
All
Roger
right,
will
now,
do it.
the difference is this. We developed from a lemur, right? Another planet could develop from a totally different placental type mammal to their type of human being, right?
So we all came from animals.
So we all come from some type of animal,
animals.
right?
Roger,
Yeah.
after on that question, I have a question as well.
Okay.
On other planets, such as ours, if, and they probably do, the life carriers implement the life plasm of different locations, can there be more than one type of human developed on a planet?
No, because the first human type species that shows any indication of the last two
Right? Spirits.
spirits, then all other animals on that planet are not allowed to develop in humanoid type creatures.
Interesting. Okay.
I know you mentioned that before, and I read that before, but like the Neanderthal were also, this came later, but they were an inferior group, supposedly, of human beings. I mean, they were like,
You know why? Is because they came from the lemurs too.
Right.
But some of the ancestor strains went back and mixed with the gibbons again.
oh, okay, that's right.
Okay, and that's where the Neanderthal type men came from.
Okay.
Okay,
Got it.
and that's why they didn't last. They became extinct.
Okay.
Okay,
They regressed rather than.
they regressed rather than progressed.
Okay.
Okay, does that make sense to y'all?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So at one time there was a mix of humanoid type beings that were part ape and part lemur. You follow me? But they didn't last long. Okay. And probably none of them had the 6th and 7th adjunct mind spirits, right? Okay.
With the passing of time, the seacoast of India southwest of the mountains gradually submerged, completely isolating the life of this region. There was no avenue of approach to or escape from this Mesopotamian or Persian peninsula except to the north, and that was repeatedly cut off by the southern invasions of the glaciers. And it was in this then almost
Parasitic, like paradise.
Okay, still can't pronounce it. Area, and from the superior descendants of this lemur type of mammal, that there sprang two great groups, the simian tribes of modern times and the present-day human species.
There you go. The simian types include the monkeys,
Tribes.
baboons,
Uh-huh.
and, yeah,
Okay.
okay. All right. Here's that one.
Yes.
2. The dawn mammals. A little more than 1 million years ago, the Mesopotamian dawn mammals, the direct descendants of the North American lemur type of placental mammal, suddenly appeared. We're talking North America now, right? The
North American type.
Huh?
The North American type.
North American type, that's right. Okay, a placental mammal suddenly appeared. They were active little creatures almost 3 feet tall. Really nice, right? And while they did not habitually walk on their hind legs, they could easily stand erect. They were hairy and agile and chattered in monkey-like fashion. But unlike the simian tribes, they were flesh eaters. They had a primitive, opposable thumb as well as a highly useful grasping big toe. From this point onward, the pre-human species successively developed those opposable thumb while they progressively lost the grasping power of the great toe. The later ape tribes retained the grasping big toe but never developed a human type of thumb. Okay. And that's what differentiated. Okay.
So, Roger, they were considered human. They wouldn't receive a dollar test for them, right?
No, they have to have, okay, we're going to cover that a little bit later in this paper, but no, the Simian tribes did not receive a thought adjuster until the first two humans appear.
Yeah, okay, we didn't get there.
Yeah, okay. You're next, Rodney, go ahead.
Alright, these dawn mammals attain full growth when 3 or 4 years of age, having a potential lifespan on the average of about 20 years. As a rule, offspring were born singly, although twins were occasionally.
It's really interesting that the whole human race came from a set of twins, a brother and a sister, right? Millie?
Okay. The members of this new species had the largest brain for all their size of any animal that had theretofore existed on Earth. They experienced many of the emotions and shared numerous instincts which later characterized primitive man, being highly curious and exhibiting considerable elation when successful in any undertaking. Food hunger and sex craving were well developed, and a definite sex selection was manifested in a crude form of courtship and choice of mate. They would fight fiercely in defense of their kindred and were quite tender in family associations, possessing a sense of self-abasement bordering on shame and remorse. They were very affectionate and touchingly loyal to their mates, but if circumstances separated them, they would choose a new partner.
Okay. So much are today.
Being small of stature and having keen minds to realize the dangers of their forest habitat, they developed an extraordinary fear which led to those wise precautionary measures that so enormously contributed to survival, such as their construction of crude shelters in the high treetops, which eliminated many of the perils of ground life. The beginning of the fear tendencies of mankind more specifically dates from these days.
Because they were constantly being chased by, what, saber-toothed tigers, all the animals of that time, right? They were afraid of being eaten. These dawn mammals developed more of a tribal spirit than had ever been previously exhibited. They were indeed highly gregarious, but nevertheless exceedingly pugnacious. Pugnacious, I'm sorry, in any way disturbed in the ordinary pursuit of their routine life, and they displayed fiery tempers when their anger was fully aroused. Their bellicose natures, however, served a good purpose. Superior groups did not hesitate to make war on their inferior neighbors, and thus, by selective survival, the species was progressively improved.
Maybe Darwin had something.
Pardon me?
Maybe Darwin had something.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. They very soon dominated the life of the smaller creatures of this region, and very few of the older non-carnivorous monkey-like tribes survived. Yeah, doesn't that sound a lot like selection of the species or whatever it is? Yeah. All right. Rodney.
These aggressive little animals multiplied and spread over the Mesopotamian Peninsula for more than 1,000 years, constantly improving their physical type and general intelligence. And it was just 70 generations after this new tribe had taken its origin from the highest type of lemur ancestor that the next epoch-making development occurred. That sudden differentiation are the ancestors of the next vital step in the evolution of human beings on Earth.
Is that sudden word again, right?
I can't imagine if we can go back that many years, and one day we can look back. But see all these little animals running around, and know that's where we came from.
Very humbling.
The only things changed, Billy, is we run around in little cars now. We're still
That's true. Number 3, the mid-mammals. Early in the career of the dawn mammals, in the treetop abode of a superior pair of these agile creatures, twins were born, one male and one female. Compared with their ancestors, they were really handsome little creatures. They had little hair on their bodies, but this was no disability as they lived in a warm and equitable climate.
So they started losing the hair, right? Okay.
These children grew to be a little over 4 feet in height. They were in every way larger than their parents, having longer legs and shorter arms. They had almost perfect opposable thumbs, just about as well adapted for diversified work as the present human thumb. They walked upright, having feet almost as well suited for walking as those of the latter human races.
Right, so they actually started looking like humans, right? Their brains were inferior to and smaller than those of human beings, but very superior to and comparatively much larger than those of their ancestors. The twins early displayed superior intelligence and were soon recognized as the heads of the whole tribe of the dawn mammals, really instituting a primitive form of social organization and a crude economic division of labor. This brother and sister mated and soon enjoyed the society of 21 children, much like themselves. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? All more than 4 foot tall and every way superior to their ancestral species. This new group formed the nucleus of the mid-mammals. That's where all of us came from, right? Okay, Rodney?
When the numbers of this youth grew great, the relentless broke out. And when the terrible struggle was over, not a single individual of the pre-existent and ancestral race of dawn mammals remained alive. A less numerous but more powerful and intelligent offshoot of the species had survived at the expense of their ancestors.
Now, did y'all get that? This is the paragraph that tells us that all their ancestors were wiped out. So all the early lemur types that they came from was gone.
So it's just the twins and their progeny and that were left?
That's it. That's exactly right. Just the twins and all their children were the only ones that left of the new human species, or the old lemur types, right? The old lemur types were all wiped out, all gone, because of relentless war.
So that chain was broken right there.
That chain was broken right there. So there's no other beings that would develop from that chain to become human, right? Okay?
And now, for almost 15,000 years, 600 generations, this creature became the terror of this part of the world. All of the great and vicious animals of former times had perished. The large beasts native to these regions were not carnivorous, and the larger species of the cat family, lions and tigers, had not yet invaded this peculiarly sheltered look of the Earth's surface. Therefore, did these mid-mammals wax valiant and subdue the whole corner of creation.
So they were king of that area, right? King of that creation. Okay.
Compared with the ancestral species, the mid-mammals were an improvement in every way. Even their potential lifespan was longer, being about 25 years. A number of rudimentary human traits appeared in this new species. In addition to the innate propensities exhibited by their ancestors, these mid-mammals were capable of showing disgust in certain repulsive situations. They further possessed a well-defined hoarding instinct. They would hide food for subsequent use and were greatly given to the collection of smooth, round pebbles and certain types of round stones suitable for defensive and offensive ammunition.
Okay, so I want to make a clarification before we get to it. They're going to tell us the lifespan of the first pair in a little bit, which is not the same as the lifespan of their progeny. Okay, the progeny was about 25 years, but we're going to find out that the first two pair could have lived up to 75 years. Okay,
I thought it said 20 earlier.
no, we're going to get to it.
Okay.
All right, these mid-mammals were the first to exhibit a definite construction propensity, as shown in their rivalry in the building of both treetop homes and their many-tunneled subterranean retreats. They were the first species of mammals ever to provide for safety in both arboreal and underground shelters. They largely forsook the trees as places of abode, living on the ground during the day and sleeping in the treetops at night. Rodney.
As time passed, the natural increase in numbers eventually resulted in a serious food competition and sex rivalry, all of which culminated in a series of
Intimacy, you bet. Yeah.
battles. They nearly destroyed the entire species. These struggles continued until only one group of less than 100 individuals was left alive. But peace once more prevailed, and this lone surviving tribe built anew its treetop bedrooms and once again resumed a normal and semi-peaceful existence.
So they started warring with each other and almost wiped the whole race out, right? Which would not have been good. Millie?
Yes. You can hardly realize by what narrow margins your pre-human ancestors missed extinction from time to time. Had the ancestral frog of all humanity jumped 2 inches less on a certain occasion, the whole course of evolution would have been markedly changed. The immediate lemur-like mother of the dawn mammal species escaped death no less than 5 times by mere hairbreadth margins before she gave birth to the father of the new and higher mammalian order. But the closest call of all was when lightning struck the tree in which the prospective mother of the primate twins was sleeping. Both of these mid-mammalian parents were severely shocked and badly burned. 3 of their 7 children were killed by this bolt from the skies. These evolving animals were almost superstitious. This couple, whose treetop home had been struck, were really the leaders of the more progressive group of the mid-mammalian species. And following their example, more than half the tribe, embracing the more intelligent families, moved about 2 miles away from this locality and began construction of new treetop abodes and new ground shelters, their transient retreats in time of sudden danger.
Because they felt like it was not good to stay there anymore, right? Because of the lightning strike.
Well, that's usually it, right?
Storm cellars.
Yeah.
Soon after the completion of their home, this couple, veterans of so many struggles, found themselves the proud parents of twins, the most interesting and important animals ever to have been born into the world up to that time, for they were the first of the new species of primates, constituting the next vital step in pre-human evolution.
It says that the parents were burned. How in the world did they take care of burns?
They probably put mud and leaves and things like that on it, really, more likely. You know, if they had aloe leaves back then, that would help soothe burns and stuff.
You think they already progressed to the point of knowing that there were healing herbs?
Yeah, no, probably, more than likely, they use things like mud and things like that because it would cover it and keep it from getting too badly infected, also draw some of the stuff out. And more than likely, that's what happened. Contemporaneously with the birth of these primate twins, another couple, a peculiar retarded male and a female of the mid-mammal tribe, a couple that were both mentally and physically inferior, also gave birth to twins. These twins, one male and one female, were indifferent to conquest. They were concerned only with obtaining food, and since they would not eat flesh, they lost all interest in seeking prey. These retarded twins became the founders of the modern simian tribes, monkeys, right? Their descendants sought the warmer southern regions with the mild climates and abundance of tropical fruits, where they have continued much of that day, except for those branches mated with the earlier types of gibbons and apes, and have greatly deteriorated in consequence. So, keep this in mind. The twins, the first two humans, ate meat, right? They were not vegetarians, okay? Just wanted to point that out. That was the first two humans that founded all humans. That was the difference between them and the gibbons, the apes and stuff. They were all vegetarians, all right?
Well, the retarded twins were vegetarian.
The retarded twins, but the whole group of them came from their ancestors, right?
So what's the difference between, do we have simian animals right now?
Yeah, that's the monkeys.
Monkeys.
Yeah,
What's the difference between gibbons and apes?
yeah, gibbons are apes, right? You have to think of gibbons as apes,
And
right?
they're vegetarians?
And they're
Still?
vegetarian still. Now, an ape will eat ants, you know, they're bugs, you know, basically, you know, they actually use a tool to eat, you know, ants, and so will monkeys, you know, but they're still considered vegetarian. Because that's not really a meat, it's an insect, right? Okay. Who's up?
Rodney?
Rodney.
Did you just read that, or did Roger?
I did.
That's very good. And so it may be readily seen that man and the ape are related only in that they sprang from the mid-mammals, a tribe in which there occurred the contemporaneous birth and subsequent segregation of two pairs of twins. The inferior pair destined to produce the modern types of monkey, baboon, chimpanzee, and gorilla. The superior pair destined to continue the line of ascent which evolved with man himself.
Okay.
Interesting.
That would be where Darwin would have liked to know, and that was the splitting of the apes.
We didn't come straight down. There was a fork in the road.
That's right. That was a fork in the road. Billy.
It's interesting. Modern man and the simians did spring from the same tribe and species, but not from the same parents. Man's ancestors are descended from the superior strains of the selected remnant of this mid-mammal tribe, whereas the modern simians, excepting certain pre-existent types of lemurs, gibbons, apes, and other monkey-like creatures, ate the descendants of the most inferior couple of this mid-mammal group.
Not eight.
What?
After the parenthesis, you said 8, but the word is on. So,
I missed that wherever we are.
okay.
Apes and other monkeys, like creatures, other monkey-like creatures, are the descendants of the most inferior couple of mid-mammal groups, a couple who only survived by hiding themselves in a subterranean food storage retreat for more than 2 weeks during the last fierce battle of their tribe. emerging only after the hostilities were well over.
And that's where all the simians came from, the monkeys, baboons, gorillas, and things like that.
So it makes it sound like they were cowards because they were in, you know, these retreats trying to stay alive.
Yeah,
I would have done the same thing.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, for the primates, going back to the birth of the superior twins, one male and one female, to the two leading members of the mid-mammal tribe, these animal babies were of an unusual order. They had still less hair on their bodies than their parents, and when very young, insisted on walking upright. Their ancestors had always learned to walk on their hind legs, but these primates twins, stood erect from the beginning. They attained a height of over 5 feet, and their heads grew larger in comparison with other among the tribe. While early learning to communicate with each other by means of signs and sounds, they were never able to make their people understand these new symbols.
So they developed primitive language with each other.
Language, yeah.
When about 14 years of age, they fled from the tribe going west to raise their family and establish the new species of primates. And these new creatures are very properly denominated primates since they were the direct and immediate animal ancestors of the human family itself.
Thus it was that the primates came to occupy a region on the west coast of the Mesopotamian Peninsula, as it then projected into the southern sea, while the less intelligent and closely related tribes lived around the peninsula point and up the eastern shoreline.
So they separated those.
The primates were more human and less animal than their mid-mammal predecessors. The skeletal proportions of this new species were very similar to those of the primitive human race. The human type of hand and foot had fully developed, and these creatures could walk and even run as well as any of their later-day human descendants. They largely abandoned tree life, though continued to resort to the treetops as a safety measure at night, for like their early ancestors, they were greatly subject to fear. The increased use of their hands did much to develop inherent brain power, but they did not yet possess minds that could really be called human.
Although in emotional nature the primates differed little from their forebears, they exhibited more of a human trend in all of their propensities. They were indeed splendid and superior animals, reaching maturity at about 10 years of age and having a natural lifespan of about 40 years. That is, they might have lived that long had they died natural deaths, but in those early days, very few animals ever died a natural death. The struggle for existence was altogether too intense.
So you usually got killed off by something sooner. And now for almost 900 generations of development, covering about 21,000 years from the origin of the dawn mammals, the primates suddenly gave birth to two remarkable creatures, the first true human beings.
This is our cat Tuxie. Tuxie's on the screen.
Thus it was that the dawn mammals, springing from the North American lemur type, gave origin to the mid-mammals, and these mid-mammals in turn produced the superior primates, who became the immediate ancestors of the primitive human race. The primate tribes were the last vital link in the evolution of man. But in less than 5,000 years, not a single individual of these extraordinary tribes was left.
So within 5,000 years, all the early tribes and everything were pretty much gone. you know, by that time, man had taken a good foothold, and that's what you're talking about. And this is a skeleton of a primate.
How old was that?
That was a million years ago.
That skeleton?
Yeah.
That's skeleton.
No, that's a skeleton of a primate. It may be that old, it may not. No, I can't say for sure.
The first human beings, from the year AD 1934 back to the birth of the first two human beings, is just 993,419 years.
And you add the years.
Mad.
Yeah, add the years from 1934 till now, and you have the exact number of the first human beings, right? So it was just about a million years ago, right? Oops, lost it.
These two remarkable creatures were true human beings. They possessed perfect human thumbs, as had many of their ancestors, while they had just as perfect feet as the present-day human races. They were walkers and runners, not climbers. The grasping function of the big toe was absent, completely absent. When danger drove them to the treetops, they climbed just like the humans of today would. They would climb up the trunk of a tree like a bear, and not as would a chimpanzee or a gorilla swinging up by the branches. So Tarzan was actually a chimpanzee or a gorilla.
I keep thinking of Tarzan too.
Yeah. These first human beings and their descendants reached full maturity at 12 years of age and possessed a potential lifespan of about 75 years. That's what I was talking about. So they had a potential, they were fully grown at 12, and they had a potential of about 75 years. Did very many of them make it to that? Not likely, right? Because there's too many dangers during that period of time.
So, I wonder how they gained such a longer lifespan over other animals. Just
Because they were the first human, they were suddenly the human stock, okay?
when human stocks live longer than animals.
Yeah, they did.
Interesting.
Well, they were smarter. They knew better to take care of themselves. They knew
Yeah.
better food. They
Better
knew
clothes,
expanded
better
their
clothing
diet.
themselves. Yeah,
Yeah,
All that
that
stuff.
adds up.
yeah. All right.
It's interesting, so it's part of the evolutionary process is, it's like, it seems like it's always human twins. I mean, it's always twins.
Well, I don't know if it's that way all over the universe, but it's possible because
And I mean,
if you
up to
think
this
about
point,
it,
though, it's.
if
that's
you
what-
think about it, Adam and Eve, when they came, right, their children commingled and married, right, to keep their stock pure. And they did that for, gosh, till they got 1,000,000 strong before they'd start intermarrying with the outside world. That's the plan anyway, before they start marrying with the outside world. So they have a lot of the violet blood, all through 1,000,000 beings, and then they start to co-mix at that point. So yeah, if you think about it, that's kind of the perfection way to start it out, is the twins. And it's a stock type thing. It's just like raising cattle. If you have two prize cattle that were twins, you'd want to mate them so that they created other cattle that were very good, so.
But that doesn't seem to be the process, the way that it evolved with people, because even in the Egyptian culture, when, sisters married brothers, and they would they would eventually, their DNA would break down as a result of that.
Yeah.
There was some point that it switched.
Yeah,
or
some
something.
point it does switch, and that's probably when Adam and Eve came, more than likely, because that changes everything. When you take the good stock and you mix it with the not as good stock, it changes everything, right? So, all right. I think
I'm
so.
reading, right?
Okay. Millie, did you just read? I'm sorry.
I don't know who read.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, I think so.
Many new emotions early appeared in these human twins. They experienced admiration for both objects and other beings and exhibited considerable vanity. But the most remarkable advance in emotional development was the sudden appearance of a new group of really human feelings, the worshipful group embracing awe and reverence, humility, and even a primitive form of gratitude. Fear joined with ignorance of natural phenomena is about to give birth to primitive religion.
So that's how religion starts, right? Fear and the ignorance of the natural phenomena or the natural laws of the world, right? And that's what gives rise to the first religion.
Primitive religion.
Yeah. Not only were such human feelings manifested in these primitive humans, but many more highly evolved sentiments were also present in rudimentary form. They were mildly cognizant of pity, shame, and reproach, and were acutely conscious of love, hate, and revenge, being also susceptible to marked feelings of jealousy. Right.
These first two humans, the twins, were a great power to the primates, parents. They were so curious and adventurous that they nearly lost their lives on numerous occasions before they were 8 years old. As it was, they were well scarred up by the time they were 12.
Well, that's true of all of our children.
Yeah, lots of battle scars.
You know, the successful parents just have their children stay alive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways they can have accidents.
There was a small child in the Habitat store today. He was just busy all the time. His mother was very patient. Very early, they learned to engage in verbal communication. By the age of 10, they had worked out an improved sign and word language of almost 100 ideas, and had greatly improved and expanded the crude communicative technique of their ancestors. But try as hard as they might, they were able to teach only a few of their new signs and symbols to their parents.
Because they didn't have capacity for understanding, did
Yeah, us older people don't take to new stuff as well.
Yeah, this seems to be a part of the ascension plan we're still going through. Our children.
they? Okay. You're
When about 9 years of age, they journeyed off down the river one bright day and held a momentous conference. Every celestial intelligence stationed on Urantia, including myself, was present as an observer of the transactions of this new tribe. On this eventful day, they arrived at an understanding to live with and for each other, and this was the first of a series of such agreements which finally culminated in the decision to flee from their inferior animal associates and to journey northward, little knowing that they were thus to found the human race.
It must be hard for the life carriers to watch all this and not do anything.
So, to me, that's really interesting. This is a life carrier that said he witnessed it, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So life carriers are spiritual,
Yes,
obviously.
yeah.
So how a spirit being could actually watch material existence.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They've got eyes too, spiritual.
They watch us all the time, I
They
think.
watch us all the time. Remember, your guardian angels are with us always. So if you're in a room by yourself, you're really not ever by yourself, are you? Because you have your guardian angels there and probably a cherubim and a seraphim with you pretty much on duty all the time.
And at least one cat.
Yeah, that's right. At least one cat. While we were all greatly concerned with what these two little savages were planning, we were powerless to control the working of their minds. We could not arbitrarily influence their decisions. There you go. See, they can't interfere. But within the permissible limits of planetary function, we, the life carriers, together with our associates, all conspired to lead the human twins northward and far from their hairy and partially tree-dwelling people. And so by reason of their own intelligent choice, the twins did migrate, and because of our supervision, they migrated northward to a secluded region where they escaped the possibility of biologic degradation, though admixture with their
Through.
inferior... I'm sorry, dear?
Through degradation, through.
Through admixture with their inferior relatives of the primate tribes. So they could not interfere, but they could probably manipulate the environment a little bit to make their way better towards the north.
Or maybe not better, but make it worse than it.
That's right.
It probably had something to do with it, didn't it?
Probably.
Well, they sort of did Adam and Eve. They started having babies, and then the babies had babies,
Yeah.
and they were not mixing with that inferior strain.
That's right.
They continued this better strain.
Yeah.
For how long? Who knows?
Well, it tells us here in a minute. Okay. Rodney?
Shortly before their departure from the home forest, they lost their mother in a given reef. While she did not possess their intelligence, she did have a worthy mammalian affection and a high order for her offspring, and she fearlessly gave her life in the attempt to save her wonderful pair. Nor was her sacrifice in vain, for she held off the enemy until the father arrived with reinforcements and put the invaders to work. Route.
And there's our given friends.
I saw double O's, but it was
The monkeys. Right?
It's getting late, my eyes don't work as well either. Soon after this young couple forsook their associates to found the human race, their primate's father became disconsolate. He was heartbroken. He refused to eat even when food was brought to him by his other children. His brilliant offspring having been lost, life did not seem worth living among the ordinary fellows. So he wandered off into the forest, was set upon by hostile gibbons, and beaten to death. See, he had emotion.
Yeah, he had emotion. That's right, he did. He just didn't have the last two adjunct wind spirits. That's all. Right? All right.
6. Evolution of the human mind. We, the life carriers on Urantia, have passed through the long vigil of watchful waiting since the day we first planted the life plasm in planetary waters, and naturally the appearance of the first really intelligent and volitional beings brought to us great joy and supreme satisfaction.
So this was their whole mission. This is what they were waiting on the whole time, right? We had been watching the twins develop mentally through our observation of the functioning of the 7 adjunct mind spirits assigned to Urantia at the time of our arrival at the planet. So when they arrived, that's when the 7 adjutants also arrived on the planet, right? And who controls that? Local universe mother spirit, right? Although the long evolutionary development of planetary life, these tireless mind ministers had ever registered their increasing ability to contact with the successively expanding brain capacity of the progressively superior animal creatures. Now remember, all creatures have the first 5, right? All animals. Okay. Rodney.
At first, only the spirit of intuition could function in the instinctive and reflex behavior of the primordial animal life. With the differentiation of higher types, the spirit of understanding was able to endow such creatures with the gift of spontaneous association of ideas. Later on, we observed the spirit of courage in operation. Evolved animals really developed a crude form of protective self-consciousness. Subsequent to their livestock, with the resulting growth of the herd instinct and the beginnings of primitive social development.
It's the first five, right? Billy?
Turn on the microphone. I keep turning it off. I've had 2 phone calls and a coughing fit during this session. But because I turned my microphone off, y'all don't get all that junk. Increasingly, on down through the dawn mammals, the mid-mammals, and the primates, we have observed the augmented service of the first 5 adjutants, but never had the remaining 2, the highest mind ministers, been able to function in the Urantia type of evolutionary mind.
Imagine our joy one day. The twins were about 10 years old when the spirit of worship made its first contact with the mind of the female twin, and shortly thereafter with the male. We knew that something closely akin to human mind was approaching culmination, and when, after a year later, they finally resolved, as a result of meditative thought and purposeful decision, to flee from home and journey north, then did the spirit of wisdom begin to function on Urantia, and in these 2 now recognized human minds.
Okay, so that's where the other 2 kicked in, right? The spirit of worship and the spirit of wisdom, right? And that's the 7 altogether. So that's when they started rejoicing, because a human being was claimed on Urantia at that time, right? There
And they were so yellow.
Pardon me?
They were so yellow.
Yeah, they were. They were. There was an immediate and new order of mobilization of the 7 adjutant mind spirits. We were alive with expectation. We realized that the long-awaited 4th hour was approaching. We knew we were upon the threshold of the realization of our protracted effort to evolve will creatures on Urantia. So they knew they were fixing to be done with the assignment, right? Rodney, you get this.
Okay, 7. Recognition as an inhabited world. We did not have to wait long. At noon, the day after the runaway of the twins, there occurred the initial test flash of the universe circuit signals at the planetary reception focus of Urantia. We were, of course, on a story with the realization that a great event was impending. But since this world was a life experiment station, we had not the slightest idea of just how we would be apprised of the recognition of intelligent life on the planet. But we were not long in suspense. On the 3rd day after the elopement of the twins, and before the life carrier corps departed, there arrived the Menon Archangel of initial planetary circuit establishment.
Now think about this. You know all those circuits we've talked about, like the angel circuit, the mind circuit, and all these other circuits that come down from paradise and through the local universe? Well, that's what they're talking about. This is when the circuits actually start functioning, when the very first human evolves to the point to make that first decision of worship and wisdom. That's when the circuits start to function.
And that's when Urantia was put into the circuit system.
That's right. That's when Urantia was put into the circuit system. And that was the case until we went into quarantine, right? During the Lucifer event. All right.
It was an eventful day on Urantia when our small group gathered about the planetary pole of space, communication, and received the first message from Salvington over the newly established mind circuit of the planet. And this first message, dictated by the chief of the Archangel Corps, said,
Go ahead and get the next one too, Lily.
To the life carriers on Urantia, greetings. We transmit assurance of great pleasure on Salvington, Endentia, and Jerusalem, in honor of the registration on headquarters of Nebadon of the signal of the existence of Anya Rancha of mind, will, of will, dignity. The purposeful decision of the twins to flee northward and segregate their offspring from their inferior ancestors has been noted. This is the first decision of mind, the human type of mind, Anya Rancha, and automatically establishes the circuit of communication over which this initial message of acknowledgement is transmitting.
So it's the mind circuit was the first to be connected, right? And who's in charge of the mind circuit?
Infinite Spirit.
Infinite Spirit, that's right. And it comes down through whom? The local universe mother spirit. So that was the establishment of the first mind spirit at that point because of the decision of the twins to make that decision to leave, right? All right.
Next over this new circuit came the greetings of the Most High's evidentia, containing instructions for the resident life carriers forbidding us to interfere with the pattern of life we had established. We were directed not to intervene in the affairs of human progress. It should not be inferred that life carriers ever arbitrarily and mechanically interfere with the natural outworking of planetary evolutionary plans, for we do not. But up to this time we had been permitted to manipulate the environment and shield the life plasma in a special manner, and it was this extraordinary but wholly natural supervision that was to be discontinued.
So they, at that point, could do nothing, right? Whatever happened, happened. And no sooner had the Most Highs left off speaking than the beautiful message of Lucifer, then sovereign of Satania's system, began to planetize. Now remember, this is before Lucifer rebelled, right? Now the life carriers heard the welcome words of their chief and received his permission to return to Jerusalem. This message from Lucifer contained the official acceptance of the life carriers' work on Urantia and absolved us from all future criticism of any of our efforts to improve the life patterns of Nebadon as established in the Satanian system. So their work was over. And basically, this was before Lucifer rebelled, and he said, he was telling them their job was done, they did a good job, they could go back home to Satania. Right?
So life carriers left except for one, right?
12.
12.
Group of 12, that's
So
right.
there must have been, I wonder how many more there were?
There was a bunch of them. I think, I can't remember the exact number. This number comes in my head of 144, but I can't say that that's right, Rodney. All right. All right. You're,
Okay. These messages from Sabaton, Edentia, and Jerusalem firmly marked the termination of the life carrier's age-long supervision of the planet. For ages, we have been on duty, assisted only by the 7 ancient mind spirits and the master physical controllers. And now, will, the power of choosing to worship and to ascend, having appeared in the evolutionary creatures of the planet, we realized our work was finished and our group prepared to depart. Urantia being a life modification world, permission was granted to leave behind 2 senior life carriers with 12 assistants.
so that makes 14, actually, right?
Yes, that answered my question. And I was chosen as one of this group, and I've ever since been a Urantia.
Okay, I want to bring something up before we wrap this up tonight, and the last things here. And that is this. The decision to worship and ascend. Did y'all see that?
I saw that.
That's what makes us human beings, is the decision to worship and ascend. So if you're running around this planet not concerned what's going to happen to you after you die, and you don't believe in God and all these other things, You're not acting as a human, you're acting as a primate, right? Or a primitive. That's the point I want to make. The most important thing we do on this planet is what? Worship and prepare for our ascension. That is the most important job while we're on this planet. All right. Let's see.
Okay. It is just 993,408 years ago, from the year AD 1934, that Uracha was formally recognized as a planet of human habitation in the universe of Nebadon. Biologic evolution had once again achieved the human levels of real dignity. Man had arrived on planet 606 of Satania. Sponsored by a life carrier of Nebadon, resident on Uracha.
He's still here, right?
One of the 14.
That's right. Let's say a little prayer and we'll close tonight, for the night. Millie, would you like to close us tonight?
Thank you. Heavenly Father, we're grateful to have this opportunity to get together and study this new revelation that you've given us. We ask that you help us use it all day, every day in our daily lives. And as we go out and meet other people, let us spread the word as best we can without shocking other people, but just encouraging them to acknowledge the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man, as Jesus would have us do, as he did. We ask in his name. Amen.
Amen. And thank you at home for joining us. Please come see us again.